All right, welcome back, Tide fans, to Tide Talk. Starting week 3, man. Got my buddy Jimmy Messick back. Kind of what we expected. We're going to kind of delve into the New Mexico State game, first home game. For some of those freshmen. Jimmy, just again, we kind of anticipated the score to be what it was, but let's just kind of summarize the game as a whole. You and I, and even Maurice, and Maurice is not with us, so we miss you, Maurice. Maybe you'll be back with us again. We kind of knew that the score would be lopsided. We felt pretty strongly that Tua would have a good day, that he would not play much into the third quarter, and I think he played one series into the third quarter. But even coming out of that game, here we are again, 62-10 win, and we're going to kind of analyze and nitpick, because I think it's worth the conversation, and that is our struggle to run the football. Now, I've got to preface that, because if you look at the numbers say something different, but as former football players, as guys that watch it, that keep up with it, we know it wasn't.
So we're going to talk about the big elephant in the room, no pun intended, right?
Right.
Which is that offensive line and running game.
Exactly.
So, honestly, disappointed again. Take 2 plays out of it. The very first one, which was
70-plus yards.
Call it a pass, call it a run, call it what you want, but I guess statistically it's a run, 75 yards. And then you got a true freshman later in the game that runs one for another 80 yards, whatever it is. So that's literally half the rushing yards we had in 2 plays. So, I read a lot yesterday. I think I sent you a text.
Yeah.
And everything I read yesterday was about the offensive line.
So that tells you, Jimmy, that
it's not just us.
That tells you that that's a topic of conversation for a lot of people.
Exactly. Well, some points that I read that I hadn't really thought about is, I think, how was it? Well, somebody said, it's not necessarily the continuity right now, it's the reps. That will come. We're missing one of our best linemen still out for suspension. So right now it's more important to get those reps in. And when it's time, we'll be ready. Now, you keep reading that, you got to believe it. There's some truth to it. I still hate that we're running, so many different guys in and on and off the field. Obviously, there's some communication issues there, which is most of the problem, I think. It can't be the talent. Talent-wise, we have one of the most talented 8 offensive linemen we've had at Alabama. But at some point, man, don't tell me it's going to be another month or whenever, Brown comes back that we're going to have it fixed. Because it just doesn't, I don't buy into that.
Say what you want, Jimmy. Say what you want. We're Alabama fans, which means we followed Alabama football for a long time. We're known for being able to run the football. We're known for when we want to put the game into our own hands so that we control the clock, we control what happens, we run the football. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, against New Mexico State, who had the 125th ranked defense in the country, and oh, by the way, there's only 130 teams.
Right.
We struggled to run the football.
Oh, yeah. What we were reading early in the season, Saban wanted to get back to Alabama football.
Alabama football.
And I'm thinking, man, that's going to be so exciting. Just punch people in the mouth again like we used to. And it's going to be, even though we had all these weapons on the outside and 2 were throwing it around, I'm like, man, I can't wait to just punch people in the face and in the mouth and just run the ball. And I'm like,
yeah, and yes.
This ain't Alabama football that I remember.
I want to believe, just like everyone else, that when we want to turn it on, we're going to turn it on. I want to believe that. Mm-hmm. Optimistically, as an Alabama fan, I want to think that Deontay Brown is the best guard that we have, and everybody keeps talking about guard play. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not necessarily singling out the guards. I'm saying the entire offensive line. We talked a little bit about the amount of pressure Tua's been getting. Now, listen, he's surrounded by NFL draft picks, probably first-round NFL draft picks. But he's getting pressured a lot, and he's getting pressured early. We can't blame it on fatigue.
Right.
So there's some concern there. And if there wasn't concern there, we wouldn't be talking about this on this show right now.
That's right.
So, again, optimistically, I want to be able to be that fan that says, yeah, man, we're getting guys reps, and all that makes sense.
It does.
It does, because you're right. At the end of the day, when we're deep into the season, those guys have experience. If someone goes down, the guy replaces him, etc. But even still, based on what you said, based on what everybody knows, we have the talent. Why are we not able to execute and run the football the way we know and we have been accustomed to running the football?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it either. I know this. If it doesn't get fixed quick, obviously because the middle of that schedule's coming, and I know we read. All right, that's one thing
No
I
way
read.
around it.
We're able to kind of do what we're doing now because of the competition. I get it, but what was it? Second, third series of the game when Tua got that knee hit.
Everybody took a deep breath.
I was like, oh my gosh, his knee's gone. So all this experimenting and running people in it, dude, it could get somebody hurt. And so what are they gonna say then? What you talking about the backlash and the stinking gnashing of the teeth if something like that happened because we're experimenting with different sets and different schemes and this and that and the other.
And I realize you have to get guys reps and they have to get game experience. They get reps in practice, and they get reps in practice against five-star talent.
Mm-hmm.
Ones that play against the offense plays against the defense and twos and ones and et cetera. I get it. It's nothing like being out there on a Saturday when there's fans and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. But I am looking forward to seeing the Alabama football that Nick Saban talks about. I'm looking forward to seeing us being able to control the clock. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to seeing that we do not have to rely on Tua. And yes, tons of weapons.
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing that and being able to establish a balanced offense. To this point, I haven't seen a lot of balance.
Well, you and I were texting during that game, and I made the comment that it almost like they looked disinterested at some, to a degree, and I think part of that is because who we were playing.
Play down to the level of competition.
And that's, I don't care how you try to prevent that, it's going to happen.
Sure it does.
So again,
all those things considered.
Flash forward to this week, on the road, SEC. What happened the last time we went to South Carolina? So
yeah, and that's going to be
I foresee just a drastic change.
you're saying that you see the intensity level increase. You're seeing some execution and that sort of thing, and I don't disagree. Listen, we've both played the game. It's obvious that when that you're going to beat someone when it's 35-0 before halftime. That becomes, however, as the guy that's trying to earn that spot, mm-hmm. that's trying to establish himself as the starter on that front line, because again, they're saying that we're mixing things up. We're trying this and trying that. Man, I'm going to tell you what, I don't care if it's 50-0. I'm going to try and show out so that I solidify my position. And I don't know that has been done by anyone per se.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and you're right. You would think, but still, I'm just telling you, we'll see some vast improvements. Trust me.
It'll be a better test, or I will feel better about it after I see what we do this weekend. So, yes, going to South Carolina. Away game, SEC, first SEC competition should be a difference. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, but we're going to take a short break on behalf of Bob English and State Farm, but we'll come back and discuss 10 years ago in South Carolina and what we think might happen. So hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
In life, some things just go together, like a burger and fries, and home and auto insurance from State Farm. So make it a combo. Combining your home and auto insurance could save you time and money. And who doesn't like that? Just call me, Bob English, or any of my experienced hometown team and find out how you could start saving today. It's just another way.
Okay, welcome back, Tide fans. Jimmy, we were right before the break. We were just talking about getting into that South Carolina game. Going our first SEC game in a road trip. Talking about the last time we were there. 2010, we go into South Carolina, #1 team in the country, and
arguably one of our most talented teams.
Yeah, arguably one of the most talented teams, and expected to repeat. And basically get it handed to us. And we talked about this before. I know I mentioned it on the last show about, I can look back because it hasn't been a lot, but the number of times that we've been beaten, it's been by a team that their quarterback had an exceptional outing. And in
Matter of fact, I think it was that game we started saying, you know what? Yeah, that's what you got to do. Somebody's got to have a perfect game to beat us, and that's what he did that night for sure. Stephen Garcia.
And I'm going to tell you, it was really good. So I don't know if you've seen some of the commentary. Nick Saban's been pretty animated.
Asked him about the game from 2010. What did he say? What was his response?
He said some of these kids weren't.
I don't know. What year is this?
Yeah.
These kids are in the sixth grade.
He was pretty animated about the fact that I don't think back.
Don't matter.
That's right.
I agree. I mean, who cares? I mean, but
these kids, they may know because they followed Alabama, or now that they're playing for Alabama, they kind of understand.
I wonder if you could go ask every single one of them,
right?
If they'd even know. How many of them would? I mean, now they probably would because I'm sure it's been mentioned. But like before the season started, you could ask them, "Hey, do y'all remember what happened the last time Alabama played South Carolina?" Probably they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, at this point, they probably know. Because you can bet that we've just come off 2 blowout wins, and now we're about to go on the road as the #2 team in the country for our first SEC game. You can bet that some of the senior leadership, maybe some of the coaches, maybe even Nick Saban is saying, hey, you better get your mind right. You better focus on the details, or this can happen.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, yeah. So, you got to think, going into a game like this, they say the whole bulletin board material. Well, there's really not bulletin board material, but there really is. Again, alluding to that game in 2010, that we were supposed to win as a #1 team. So I think they could certainly use it. Like I say, whether Saban wants to agree to it or not, I think it's got to help get them motivated and focused, and make sure that don't happen again. Now, again, we don't think it will, but still. I think it can't help but it can't help but have that up there for that motivation factor.
Yeah, I mean, I know that our guys are probably getting a little more prepared, so to speak. Not that they don't prepare anyway, but you're talking about the first SEC game. Granted, the game against Duke was the kickoff to the season, so there was some anticipation there. I would imagine as a player and a coach, that anticipation, that intensity dropped off a little bit, knowing that New Mexico State, even though it was the first home game, that New Mexico State was coming in, highly, highly, highly unlikely that they were going to do any damage. So this is the first time that some of these freshmen, think about our 2 linebackers, they've never played in an SEC football game.
On the road, first true road game.
And they're about to do it. First true road game and SEC opener, So I imagine that the focus and the intensity has picked up a little bit this week in practice.
Yes.
There's no doubt. Just as a competitor, you think that you get there for every game and you're preparing, but what we've said for years is what Nick Saban does. He gets guys ready week after week, even when you're ranked at the top, and that's one of his specialties, is the ability to motivate and prepare kids even at 52, 53 weeks as the #1 team in the country and that sort of thing.
And again, Saban, he claims he prepares for every team, every game the same. I guess you have to believe that, but still, you got to think that this one's a little different, even though they're not a ranked team, and we're supposed to go in there and win, but still, it's like you said, the first road game, first SEC game. you got to think that there's a little extra motivation, a little extra pep in everybody's step, including the coaching staff, to go see what this team's about.
And that's what I was going to say. Not just for the players. Think about the new coaches that we have. You know, the guys that are in new positions, even not necessarily new coaches. You know, Golding is the defensive coordinator now. Mm-hmm. He's going into his first SEC game as the DC. You know, you can imagine that he's probably a little more focused on the details. With Saban being a defensive-minded coach, you know that he's, you know, got two middle linebackers that are freshmen that are starting for him on their first SEC game. So, you know, there's some question marks there. We believe that we've got the talent, obviously, but there's some question marks there. And here's where I think is going to be the key. It's going to be the guys that have been there. It's going to be the other lead. I say the other leaders. It's going to be the leaders. It's going to be Anthony Jennings. It's going to be Terrell Lewis. It's going to be Shaim Carter in the back. You know, Diggs. It's going to be those guys that are going to be able to step up because they've been there and be able to help those two freshmen out a little bit in this game.
Yep, true. And it's going to be interesting to see too. And again, not that we expected or anticipated, but you know, again, like the Duke game, what if we ended that first quarter and it's 0-0, or there's a little adversity? Maybe we do have our first turnover, and maybe they score first. I mean, you know, all these different things could play out. It'd be interesting to see how the youngins, the youngsters, and the freshmen kind of respond to that.
I know it'll be a little different for South Carolina. If I'm not mistaken, Jake Bentley, the starting quarterback, is out.
He's out, yeah, for the season. They started a true freshman who set some kind of freshman record up there. Again, I don't know exact stats. I didn't really look at that.
Sometimes that can be a little scary. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, this guy, you know, comes in. He has nothing to lose. Unless champ. You know, he doesn't have anything to lose.
That's right.
And so that can play a part in, you know, in what happens. And you can bet that Will Muschamp's going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Nick Saban in Alabama, because why not?
But can he throw the kitchen sink with a true freshman back there?
You're right.
You know, and you certainly got to like our chances, regardless of that. We would have been favored if Bentley would have been the quarterback.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
But you definitely got to like our chances, regardless if it's on the road or not, with a true freshman, just his second start. And granted, I know these days, you know, these kids are coming out of high school so much more advanced than they used to be as far as being, you know, football ready and for college. And I mean, there's so many stinking freshmen that are starting all over the field, including quarterback.
That's right.
But I still like our chances for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have to lean to the side of Alabama, and you know, just the simple fact that we're the number 2 team in the country coming into South Carolina highly touted, both defensively and offensively, maybe arguably the best offense in the country. You know, and that's not me just being an Alabama fan. That's just the fact.
You know, and I'm not a betting guy. The line came out at 21, and immediately went to 22, and I think it's up to like 25.5 in 2 days. So we're not the only ones that think Alabama's going to go in there and take care of business.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about lines. I was talking to a buddy of mine last weekend, and he was like, you know, what do you think? What do you think? And I'm like, you know, look, I don't bet on games. I've never done that. I've played around before, but anything serious. But if I were a betting man,
did you hear that, Sheriff Taylor?
Yeah. If I were a betting man, I would bet that Alabama would cover last weekend. And, you know, the game's 45-0, and it's halftime, you know, and I'm like, I told my buddy, I was like, look, Tua's going to play at least another series, and then he's going to let Mac Jones play a little bit. And sure enough, then they score.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the difference when you say I wouldn't have bet last week, but I'd bet this week.
Right.
I think we'll cover the 25.5.
Yeah. So the bottom line is I should not bet, and nor should you.
Exactly.
But it'll be interesting to see our approach, how we are prepared, both offensively and defensively. So we're going to take a short break again. And then we'll come back and just kind of break this game down a little bit more and talk about the offense and then talk about a little bit about the defense when we come back. So hold your seats, Tide fans. On behalf of Bob English and State Farm, we'll be right back with Tide Talk.
And don't forget to call this number at the bottom of the screen.
Enjoy the good times a little more with the right plan. As your State Farm agent, I am here to help you protect your dreams and loved ones with life insurance. With over 60 years combined State Farm experience, call me or any of my team to find out which options are best for you. Another way, we're here to help life go right.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. We're going to wrap up this show, this last segment. We're going to break down the offense a little bit more. We're going to talk about Tua in the passing game. I was reading a stat just talking about, not necessarily a stat, but reading an article about Heisman favorites and that sort of thing. And, of course, everybody has Jalen Hurts as the Heisman favorite. And that's understandable. He's got the people's vote. You know, it's what we've said before, and it's an issue that I have. It's unfortunate for Tua because of the numbers. He's got great numbers, but in a half of play. Mm-hmm. You know, he played in one series into the third quarter last week. Didn't play much into the third quarter the first week. And that's unfortunate because his numbers look really, really good, and he's only played, in essence, one full game out of the two.
Same conversation we had last year.
Same thing. Finished runner-up last year, is going to be in the hunt again this year, without a doubt. And I just think that should be taken into consideration when that Heisman conversation's going on. But to talk about him and the offense and the production, we knew that it was going to be prolific. We knew that the guys, Ruggs and Judy and Devontae Smith and Waddle, we knew they were going to be all that they were hyped up to be. I like, Jimmy, seeing the fact that Tua has been extremely accurate, even with pressure that he's been getting. And he's been pressured a pretty good bit.
Yeah. Well, you know, I actually thought last week he was a little off, to be honest. I mean, he did have 8 incompletions, I think, which is still not bad. But
here we are.
I mean, he had 8 in
We're picking apart.
He had 8 in the first half, and he had 4 all of the week before. So honestly, I thought he was a little bit off. I don't know what it was exactly. I mean, he had as much pressure in the first game as he did the second game. So there was something that just wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
So I am anxious to see how he looks and that offense looks again this week. Now, granted, no reason to think that we're not going to put up 40 or 50 points again, but still, to me, I just thought something was a little bit off last week. So I'm anxious to see what improvements.
Yeah, it's bad when we're critiquing an 8 incompletion performance.
Right.
I mean, and that's the reality. I mean, it's bad when we're critiquing that. You know, when you, and I don't know what his final numbers were, but if you think about that, if he was 22 for 30, you know, for 320 yards, and I'm not saying that's what he was, but I'm just throwing those numbers out there. If you're talking, that's pretty good day. That's a pretty good day.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it was a bad day. I'm just saying it was just a little off.
And I'm with you.
For me, especially based on the competition.
And just based on what we have come to expect from Tua. I mean, he's extremely accurate. He's extremely accurate. What I like, and again, we're talking about the receivers a little bit now, is you don't see a whole lot of drop balls. We may see 1 or 2, but if it hits them in the hands,
I think we may have had 1 in 2 games.
I think we've had 1.
1 in 2 games.
I think we've had 1. And, you know, if we're talking about the same one, it was a pretty tough catch. Although with their hands got on it, it was a pretty tough catch, you know, in the air and that sort of thing. I'm really anxious to see how those numbers increase when we're able to run the football. Mm-hmm. I mean, thus far, we've not been able to run the football. So the play action isn't as effective. It's effective because they still have to allot for those guys.
Right. I would personally love to see us come out and try to establish the run, just to see if we can. I mean, I think we can
Yeah.
if we wanted to. I think concerning Tua and his numbers, I think he'll still get his numbers regardless. So I honestly, I'd like to see what type of improvement Tua will make this week, because again, I still think he was a little off last week, but more than that, the running game. I still think we got to run the football a little better. And so that's what I'm curious to see.
Well,
anxious to
we
see.
know that defensively, South Carolina will be prepared. Will Muschamp's a defensive guy.
That's right.
So we know they'll be prepared. I don't know that they have the Jimmies and the Joes. You know, I've always said before, a lot of
Jimmies and the
times
Shawns.
it's not the X's and the O's. It's the Jimmies and the Shawns. It's the Jimmies and the Joes. I don't know that they have those that can play 4 quarters. I'm wanting to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that they'll come prepared. They'll have schemes ready. They'll get pressure on Tua. They've seen 2 teams have some success
That's
at
right.
that.
Oh, there's no doubt Muschamp will have something
He'll be ready with that.
that we'll have to make an adjustment on. You know, every team does it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, I've been impressed so far with our 2 linebackers, and as we were talking at the break, Jimmy, I think part of that has to do with the way our DBs have been able to play the game. Mm-hmm. We've got more experience this year. We knew that we were going to be experienced in the defensive backfield, and then of course we have those injuries up front with Dylan Moses, and it takes a little bit of pressure off of those guys when you can cover in the backfield.
Oh, there's no doubt. You know, and talking about coaching too, I'm kind of curious with Golding. You know, what does he have in store? You know, I mean, typically early in the season and traditionally we're man to man, just make a play.
Don't do a whole lot.
You know, we might show a little bit here, a little stunt there, a little twist there, but I'm curious with a freshman starting, you know, what he's going to draw up for us. And either way, like you said, whether it's a blitz package or what, you got to be comfortable regardless because of that back end. You know, you can leave guys on an island,
sure,
bring some pressure if that's what you want to do. Maybe show a little bit, get in that freshman's head, because you know you can do that with what we've got on the back end.
Now, I know that last week Diggs got banged up a little bit. What's the status with Diggs?
Cramps.
Yeah.
So yeah, they say. I mean, as far as I know, we're as healthy as we've ever been.
It's sad to say that every time we see a guy go down, or you know, it's everybody takes a deep breath and
we know this year all our injuries happen first game, preseason. And with that being said, I mean, thankfully, knock on some wood, and wherever that is, you know, we've been
really healthy.
We've stayed healthy through the first couple of games. That's always, you know, a concern when you're playing that lesser team. Just like last week with Tua, got to hit on that knee in the first quarter. You know, you always have to, we always have to worry about that happening. But so far, like I said, we've stayed healthy, and so I'm curious what we've got from a defensive standpoint.
Well, I'm excited about our defensive play. I'll be interested to see how we play against an SEC opponent. I'm curious to see in that environment, road game, how the freshmen respond. It certainly makes it, as we said, a little more comfortable with the guys in the back. But we hadn't even talked about the guys off the edge. Anthony Jennings, Terrell Lewis coming off the edge, which are Raekwon Davis in the middle.
Lewis has been like unblockable. Dude.
He is the X factor that we have not seen for a couple of years because he's been injured, been dealing with those injuries. But he's a guy that can absolutely change the outcome of a game.
Well, he changes the way you have to call your plays. You can't drop back and sit there and wait for some, you know, long route to develop because you're going to get sacked.
Yeah.
You're going to get hit. So, I mean, he absolutely changes the game in game. He changes the game before it even gets started because you know those coaches are watching that guy come off that edge.
Yeah.
And know they've got to do something to account for that.
And then just to wrap up all of this, it's kind of exciting that we made some field goals. I know Sheriff Heath Taylor was really happy.
I'm sure Taylor was, but I'm sure he found something to gripe about though. But
he did. But you know, it was good to see the confidence. The Joker stepped up there, you know, hit a 47-yarder.
He hasn't tried a field goal under 47 yards yet.
Right.
And all 4 of them would have been good for 60-something.
And he hit that from way out. And so it was good for him to get that under his belt. Looked like it was pretty easy for him. That's a little exciting too, just because for so long, for so many years, we've struggled with the kicking game. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, has there been a kickoff return yet? He's kicked, if I'm not mistaken, every kickoff into the end zone. So, man, what a weapon that is, that you know, you got somebody like a Waddle or a Diggs, you know, that's back there, or Ruggs returning kicks, and they don't get a chance because he's kicking them through the end zone. So that's pretty impressive, and I'm excited for him. I'm excited to see him grow as the year goes.
He's a true freshman too, by the way.
I'm excited for him to be at least with us for 3 more years. But well, Jimmy, I know you're excited about the SEC game just like I am. It'll be interesting to come back and talk about this next week. So thank you for coming again.
Yeah, man. Enjoy it always.
And fans, if you'll join us again next week, Channel 7 or 207, we'll be right back here with Tide Talk, and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.